And so when things get hard, and they're going to get hard, for me, when I was writing my dissertation, it was brutal. It was hard. Going through this process has been hard. I feel like I've been throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. Because I know all of these learning to learn skills that I learned through accelerated learning, I can put them into the tools that I have with technology. So let me share with you what those 5 tips are.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. My name is Craig, and in this video we have a special guest with us who is going to be covering 5 study tips if you are a professional studying any kind of professional development towards certification. This video is going to be certainly helpful for you. The guest that I have is Brandi with an I. So as you can see from her LinkedIn, she has had an excellent career as a person in talent and development, and she does a lot with learning processes. So I think this is why I wanted her to talk a bit about study tips. In particular, right now, she is studying for the CPTD, which is the Certified Professional in Talent Development. And as part of this, she has been posting a series of articles that I think that are just a lot of value. So first off, you need to follow her. And then second off, you need to start reading her blog. I'm just gonna let her talk a little bit about herself, tell us who she is. So Brandi, tell the audience what you're all about, what you've been doing, and what your goals are. And then we will get into 5 study tips.
That sounds great. Well, first of all, Craig, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I think what, like a lot of your listeners, I just tend to be a learner. It's what I love to do. It's at the heart of who I am as a person. And I knew when I was 7 years old, I wanted to be a teacher. And I was the first person in my family to go to college, but I knew that teachers needed to go to college. So that was the route that I needed to take. And once I did that, I was hired before I even graduated to step into a gifted and talented program, teaching in a K through 5 level. I did not know what I was doing. I'd taken like 2 classes, but these kids were unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. And so I decided to go back for my master's degree at Whitworth University. And when I did that, I took an accelerated learning class. And it was a class that I think it's only a 3-day class, changed the way that I thought about learning. Suddenly, somebody was talking to me about environment and music and mind mapping and all of these things that just made me come alive because I loved learning so much. And she connected me with the owner and operator of Super Camp and said, you really need to be talking with Bobby DePorter. And so I called her up. They'd already hired their facilitators that summer for Super Camp. And so then I went the next summer and went through a 270-hour preparation course in order to teach junior and senior high kids using these methods. It was life-changing. I'd come back the following year and quarterly had gone through some weekend-long trainings to learn how to train teachers in these methods, and it completely changed the way that I was doing things. At the time, I got invited to come in and do some consulting with schools and realized I wanted to be out of the classroom and into the world of adult learning. And so I went to my mentor and I said, Margot, what do? I want to do what you do. And I knew that I needed to find somebody who'd walked the path ahead of me and was walking it well and find out what they did. And she said, you have 2 options, Brandi. First of all, you're in your late 20s, you need credibility. So you do that in one of 2 ways. 1, you write a book, or 2, you go back and get your PhD. And so I immediately called up my best friend and said, hey, what do you think about a PhD program at Gonzaga? And she said, I'm in, let's do it. We took every class together and got a PhD in leadership studies. It was a fantastic experience and really opened up doors for me to be able to go into the training and development field. And so I started off, left the classroom and then started working with teachers. So it's finding your niche, finding what it is that you know a lot about. And I was in online education before online education was even a thing back in 2002. And I started training teachers along the West Coast in these teaching strategies and bringing in some accelerated learning. And how do you do this online? And what does this look like? And then that morphed into stepping into the corporate world and working with superintendents and principals in leadership development. And as I was there, again, I realized there's so much about talent development that I don't know. And that's when I stumbled across the CPTD. First, I stumbled across ATD, gone to several of their conferences and realized I want to learn more. And that's how I stumbled into the CPTD. And that's where I am right now.
Okay. How long have you been a member of the ATD?
I joined in 2015, so 5 years.
Okay. And have you done the APTD?
I have not. No,
Oh, okay. So
this is
yeah.
my first official certification, and so this is
Wow.
all new to me too.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. And so you're learning along the way. So that probably means you're picking up some study habits or some tips that might be valuable for others, that it would improve their learning journey. So we had talked before this call, like what could we talk about? And I suggested that you come up with 5 tips to share with the audience about studying. So if you don't mind, could you tell us what your 5 tips are for becoming better at studying and preparing for these types of exams?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I told you is I feel like I've been throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And I've been doing that since I started my doctoral program because I know all of these learning to learn skills that I learned through accelerated learning. I can put them into the tools that I have with technology. And then all of the people that I'm reading about, it's all starting to come together. And I feel like I have a little bit of a system. So let me share with you what those 5 tips are. The first is Simon Sinek and discovering your why. And so when things get hard, and they're going to get hard, for me, when I was writing my dissertation, it was brutal. It was hard. Going through this process has been hard because you've got a book, and I go, oh, here's mine. You've got your TD Bach,
Uh-huh.
which is, between 600 and 700 pages, and you have to learn all of this information. It's not easy. And so when it gets hard, you have to know what your why was. And my why is the fact that I'm grounded in this love of learning. And for me, I wanted to be able to do my job better and to continuously improve. And so I was able to really think back when it's hard, it's 5:30 in the morning and I'm sitting down in front of my computer, remembering that love for learning and attaching that why to what it is that I do.
Uh-huh.
The second thing is Marcus Buckingham, and I had heard him for the first time at an ATD conference, and he struck a chord in me when he said, focus on your strengths. And he mentioned that if you can focus on your strengths, you're going to be a competitive advantage in whatever you do. If you work on those weaknesses and try to get up to standard on those weaknesses, which you should be at a meets expectations kind of a range, you're never going to break through if you're focusing on that. But if you focus on something that you're really, really good at and take that to the next level, you're going to go up a lot faster and you're going to be able to go a lot higher, and it's going to give you that competitive advantage. So when you're developing your study plan, it's knowing what you're good at, knowing what your preferences are, knowing what motivates you, and then continuously leveraging that, whether you're more of a visual, more of an auditory, more of a kinesthetic. What is it for you? What helps you to learn best? So knowing what your strengths are and leveraging those.
Yeah, if you don't
And
mind me jumping in just real
yeah, please.
quick, I think one thing that's been great is on LinkedIn, there's a community of folks that are studying for the CPTD. And I would assume this would be for any professional organization that has a certification. And I've really found it interesting how people are sharing a variety of different modes, right? Like we're seeing some visual graphics, we're getting audio, video, you're sharing blog posts. So there's just a lot of different types of medium for learning. So that's been really great. And again, I just want to reemphasize to everybody that they should go check out your stuff because it is just fantastic.
Oh, thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. And you're right. Everybody is leveraging what works for them. So a friend of mine, Mo, has been sharing, he's an instructional designer. He's been sharing all sorts of video and visual kinds of
Uh-huh.
learning aids that I'm taking and putting into my notebook.
Absolutely.
Personally, I'm blogging because I'm an auditory learner. I also enjoy speaking. And so when I blog, this is just a little tip. When I blog, I never type. I sit down and I use the dictate function inside of Microsoft Word, and I just speak it out as if I was giving a presentation. I reread it, and then I take it and I put it into the article format inside of LinkedIn. So
That's
it's what
awesome.
works for me. Yeah, so it's taking what works for you and doing it that way. I also have been starting to create some videos because I love doing that as well, putting the auditory to the visual, and that's working out too.
Yeah, well, you just gave a really good tip that's going to appease other members of my YouTube channel audience, which is how to be more efficient and effective as a communicator. And using the dictate to text is just efficient. So I love it.
Yes, I'm
Okay, go
glad
ahead
that
and
it
get,
can help. I'm glad
Great.
it's going to help. The next one is stacking your habits. So it's James Clear, and he really talks about how you stack those habits to make sure, again, that you're leveraging. And so for me, I'm a morning person. I'm cheerful when I get up in the morning, and it's something that every morning I get my cup of coffee and I come down and I make sure that I spend some time in my seat writing and studying and learning. And so stacking your habits to that. Some people are runners. So if I were a runner, I'm not. If I were a runner, I would make sure that I had a playlist inside of my YouTube that had some videos or some audio of me sharing what it is that I need to know, and that becomes part of that routine. For me, if you've read my blog, I love to sleep, and so I've been creating these brain tapes, and inside of my system, I talk about how you succinctly, as succinctly as possible, you answer the questions to those learning outcomes. And I put those on these brain tapes, and then I create a playlist and I fall asleep to it at night. And I realized, and this is just a new tip that I just realized 2 days ago, so I'm going to share it with you, Craig. The new tip is that I was learning about different kinds of theories in consulting. One, for instance, was single and double loops. The next one was some stuff from Edgar Schein. And what I did, ladder of inference, I went in and I found short little video clips and I added those to my playlist. So I didn't have to add all of the audio that goes along with that for my brain tapes. I just put the video itself in. I think I've got like 35 of them right now. And as I go to sleep, I listen to them all night long. And I know that it's going to help me later on down the road.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, I love that.
And then the last two kind of go hand in hand for me, and it's more of my priority management system. It's the Pomodoro technique and the 12-week year system. And so I first learned about 12-week year from Asian Efficiency. I am a huge productivity geek, and I love their site. And they have this, I think it's like a 57-minute podcast talking about the 12-week year. And basically what you do is you take a goal, up to 3 goals, I'm taking 1 goal, and you break it into 12-week sprints. Week number 1, these are the 7 things that I'm going to accomplish, and these are the days that I'm going to accomplish them. And then it allows you to break it up over time so you're not rushing at the end, and you have a nice plan from week 1 to week 12 so that you can crush your goals. And then I use the Pomodoro technique where I told you I come and I sit here in my desk and I do it for 52 minutes. I have an app on my phone and it's called Simple, SYMPL. And on that app, it's set for 52 minutes where I work without distraction. If something comes to my mind, I jot it down and I keep working. And then after that 52 minutes, I take a 17-minute break. And research shows that we need to have those cycles in order to be most effective. And I cycle out my whole day, honestly. If I know that I'm working on something, I have those lists of things that are on my 12-week year that I need to accomplish. And then I do them in 57 or 52-minute blocks. And it works out great for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's perfect. So those are 5 fascinating tips that I think would help a lot of people just be better at least maximizing their time for studying in their already busy lives. And then I love that you backed up everything you were saying with some good examples or quotes or what theories you were drawing on or what authors you were drawing on. So it gives people a way to go out and, do some learning on those techniques. So I just appreciate you sharing with us those 5 tips. Now, I guess the question some folks might be asking, because you started off saying that, you began sort of just like, throwing spaghetti at the wall and figuring out what worked for you. And you've now found some things that work for you. You've shared those 5 things, but how do you know that they're working for you?
It's the proof is in the pudding. And so for me, it's the fact that when I come back and I sit down and I'm studying the next day, I'm realizing, oh, I remember this. Or I'm going in to the pre-assessment where I'm taking some notes. And when I'm going to the final assessment inside of that prep course, I'm acing those final assessments. So it's
Okay.
being able to go in and realize, and I'm using it through the assessment techniques or the assessment tools, is taking those assessments and seeing if it's paying off. And I'm noticing that, yes, it's paying off.
Yeah, so you're seeing an increase in your correct response rate and so forth.
Yes,
That's
I am.
great. Perfect. Well, I will hope that you would come back on this channel again and maybe share with us some other tips or ideas. I know that you've been working on a OneNote book that allows people to take notes in it sort of efficiently, effectively, and you have some strategies behind that. So I'd love to have you back on the channel really soon to talk about that. Would you be willing to join us?
Oh, I'd love to, Craig, anytime.
Awesome. Perfect. So there you have it, folks. Thank you for joining us and learning 5 tips from Brandi with an I. Check out her LinkedIn page, which I will have a link to in the description. My name is Dr. Craig Ingstrom, and as you know, or maybe you don't know, I share tips on how to be a more efficient and effective communicator so that you can improve your professional workflows wherever they might be, and in this case, studying for certification exams. I hope that I will see you in the next video.